Hey guys, I'm going to go through the homework from this week for you. You'll be able to fast forward if you need to and you understand how to work the problem. So number one, we're going to solve each expression. So we have the opposite of 2 squared times negative 3 divided by 8 times 5 minus 4 minus 3. So from our notes, you know that if you have a fraction like this, you're going to work through the numerator and then work through the denominator and then simplify at the end. So right here, we are squaring 2. We are not squaring a negative 2. So that gives us the opposite of 4 times negative 3. And then when we multiply those together, we get 12. And in the denominator, we need to do our parentheses first. So then we have 8 times 1 minus 3. And then we're going to do this multiplication before subtraction. And so then we have 8 minus 3. And that will leave us with 12 over 5. And if you wanted that as a decimal, it would be 2.4. Or you could leave it as 12 over 5. Number 2, we have the opposite of the square root of 9 plus 3 squared minus 2 cubed. So according to our order of operations, we're going to deal with our exponents. The square root of 9 is a form of an exponent. So we will do that first, and we get 3. And then we will work our way through and do these other exponents. 3 squared is 9. 2 cubed would be 8. And now we work our way across left to right since all we have left is addition and subtraction. So we have negative 3 plus 9, which is 6. And 6 minus 8 would give us negative 2. Number 3, we have the opposite of 4 cubed divided by 2 times 8 plus a negative 12. So we are going to do our exponents first, and we are going to raise 4 to the third power. It's not a negative 4 to the third power. So then we get the opposite of 64 divided by 2 times 8 plus a negative 12. And we are doing the division first. So we have negative 64 divided by 2, which would be negative 32 times 8 plus negative 12. Then we're going to do our multiplication. And we get a negative 256 plus a negative 12. And then we can do that addition. And we get a negative 268. Number 4, we have 50 divided by 5 and a bracket. We have 3 minus 1 squared plus 8 to the 0 power. So we are going to start with our parentheses. Brackets are a form of parentheses, so we're going to work within those brackets first. And within the brackets, we do PEMDAS, which would be the parentheses. So 50 divided by 5, and then 3 minus 1 is 2. And we're going to continue in those brackets. So we have 50 divided by 5, and 2 squared is 4. And then we are going to do our exponents, because that would be next. Remember, brackets are just a form of parentheses. 8 to the 0 power is 1. And now we have division, multiplication, and addition. So we do our division first. So it'd be 10 times 4 plus 1. And we do our multiplication. We get 40 plus 1. And then we do that addition to get 41 for number 4. Number 5, we have negative 4 squared minus 3 cubed. So we're going to do our exponents first. Negative 4 squared would be 16 minus, and then we're going to do that exponent of 3 cubed to get 27. And then we can do that subtraction of 16 minus 27 to get negative 11. Number 6, we have 4 plus 5 squared minus 1 minus 2 cubed. So we're going to do our parentheses first, and we get 9 squared minus, we're going to do these other parentheses, negative 1 cubed. And then we're going to do our exponent. So 9 squared would be 81 minus negative 1 cubed. So negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is going to give us that negative 1 as well. And 81 minus a negative 1, we would do keep, change to get 82. For number 7, simplify the expression below and then answer the question. So for column A, we are going to simplify the opposite of the square root of 144. So the square root of 144 is 12, and the opposite of 12 is a negative 12. For column B, we have the opposite of the square root of 36, which would end up being a negative 6. Negative 12 is less than negative 6, so our answer would be that the quantity in column B is greater. Number 8, which expression will be negative when simplified? So I would just go through each one and pay attention to how many times you're multiplying the negatives and the positive together. So on number 8, we have a negative number squared. So that would be a negative times a negative, which would equal a positive. On B, we have a negative to the 4th power. Oh. So it would be a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive, times a negative would be a negative. Negative times a negative would equal a positive. So on these ones, you don't even have to actually figure out what the numbers are. You just got to pay attention to the signs. On C, we have a positive, which is 3, times a negative, and then we have 8 squared. So that would be a positive times a positive. So a positive times a negative is a negative, times a positive is a negative, times another positive is a negative. On D, we have a negative number to the 3rd power. So negative times a negative times a negative, times another negative to the 3rd power. A negative times a negative is a positive, times a negative would be a negative, times a negative would be a positive, times a negative would be a negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So answer C would be our negative answer. Now I'm going to move on to the simplifying expressions and substitution homework. It says to solve each expression. So on number 1, we have 5x times 8 minus 5 minus x minus 4x. So when you're simplifying these expressions, you still have to do order of operations if there's something to do. We have parentheses, so we need to simplify that first. So it'll be 5x times 3 minus x minus 4x. And now we are going to do our multiplication. So we have 15x minus x minus 4x. And then we just work our way left to right with that subtraction. So that would give me 14x minus 4x's, which is equal to 10x. Number 2, we have 12 minus 15 times 2x minus 3. So we have parentheses, but we can't do anything within those parentheses, so that's why we will distribute the negative 15. So 12 and then negative 15 times 2x is a negative 30x, and negative 15 times a negative 3 is a positive 45. And now we will combine our like terms. Remember, your term with the variable goes first. So that'd be a negative 30x, and 12 plus 45 is equal to 57. Number 3, we have negative 15 times x minus 4 minus 6y plus 10. So we look at our parentheses, we cannot combine those. So we will distribute the 15. Negative 15 times x is negative 15x. Negative 15 times negative 4 is a positive 60. and then we just bring everything else down. We're going to combine our like terms of 60 and 10. So now we have negative 15x minus 6y plus 70. So make sure that your terms go in alphabetical order and your constant is at the end. Number 4, we have 1/3 times 3x minus 9y plus 27z. So on this one, we can't combine anything in there, so that will force us to distribute the 1/3. 1/3 times 3x is 1x. 1/3 times a negative 9y is going to be a negative 3y. And 1/3 times 27z is going to be 9z. Luckily, those are already in alphabetical order, and there's your final answer for number 4. For number 5, we are going to do substitution. So we're plugging in negative 7 for x and negative 5 for y. And like we said in our notes, I would highly suggest that when you substitute, that you put parentheses around what you are substituting. So on number 5, we have x squared divided by 7 minus x squared y. So I'm going to plug in negative 7 for x. And I'm going to plug in negative 5 for y. So we are first going to do, we don't have any parentheses, we don't have anything to do within the parentheses, so then we go to our exponents. So we have negative 7 squared, which would be 49, over 7, minus, now we have this negative 7 squared, which is also 49, times that negative 5. We have division, subtraction, multiplication, so we do our division first. We get 7 minus 49 times negative 5. Now we need to do that multiplication. So we have 49 times the negative 5. So now it's 7 minus a negative 245. And again, you would do keep change right there to get to 52. Number 6, we are still substituting, and it's those same numbers. So we have 3 times x plus y squared. We are going to plug in negative 7 for x and negative 5 for y, and then square those. So we work within our parentheses first, and we have negative 7 plus a negative 5, and that would be a negative 12. Then we go to our exponents, and negative 12 squared would give me 144. And now we can finish with that multiplication to get 432. Number 7, we are continuing to substitute. We just have different numbers. So we have x cubed times y. We are going to plug in a negative 1/3 for x. And we are going to plug in a negative 1/2 for y. So we are going to do our exponents first. So negative 1/3 times x, that's negative 1/3 times negative 1/3 times negative 1/3. And when you get that, you will end up with a negative 1/27. And that would be times a negative 1/2. And we would plug that into our calculator, and we would get 1/54. That decimal goes on, so it is repeating eventually, but I would just leave that as a mix, or as an improper fraction. Number 8, we want to know which column has the larger value. Again, like the one from the other homework, you just need to really pay attention to the negative or positive. So for column A, we have a negative times a negative times a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive, times another positive, that's going to come out to a positive answer. For B, we have a positive times a negative times a positive. A positive times a negative will be a negative, and a negative times a positive will be a negative. So then obviously A will have to be the larger value. If y'all have any questions, please let us know.